G'day, we're David and Paula. Like many people, we've been working hard for many years and we're too young to retire, but we've decided to take a gap year from work. We've bought a new van and we're doing a lap right around Australia. Episode, our Tasmania leg comes to an end. Something that we've been waiting for a long time. We give you our top 10 Tassie locations and some tips for travel around Tasmania. But the sun's come out.
High maintenance.
This is just absolutely insane. That's almost spa-like in here. It is? Go on, go and try it. It's where the sun's been on the rocks, Paula. It's nice and warm. Come on, in you come. Not too bad. You want to come around? Come on. Oh. Wow, ow, 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 ow. It's really quite nice. Crazy, man. How good was that?
That's pretty good.
We keep saying that, don't we?
Yeah, you do.
Isn't it? What are we going to say? We're going to say best ever. Best ever. Check all this out. What time is it?
Must be 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock? No, I think it's only gin o'clock.
Gin o'clock sounds better.
You reckon gin o'clock? Oh, going to be sad to leave this place today. I don't know if we're going to get those mountain bluffs on the GoPro very well. They're just a little bit too distant, but they're absolutely stunning. So g'day, welcome, g'day.
G'day.
In this episode, we're just going to wrap up Tasmania, so we're back on the mainland, and we've had to stop in Melbourne just to get the front bar put on the car.
Yep.
So we'll finish up with the trip to the gin distillery, because probably like going to the gin distillery. But we thought we'd wrap up our Tasmania trip and do our top tips and our top 10 Tassie locations. What do you reckon?
Okay.
When we first started the Tassie trip, we actually posed the question, didn't we? Which was, is 3 weeks long enough? Is 3 weeks long enough? No, it's not long enough. No, nowhere near long enough. And for us, we actually had to do it in 3 weeks, mainly because we couldn't get a suitable return trip on the Spirit of Tasmania. It was either too long or too short, and we'll cover that in the tips anyway. So 3 weeks was definitely not long enough. So we had to ram a few things in, and there were a few places we'd been to before that we didn't go to because we'd been there before, and there were 1 or 2 places that we would have liked to have got to that we didn't get to. I know that some people sort of spend 3 months in their van sort of wandering around Tasmania, which is great if you can do it, but we reckon that the average person probably hasn't got that sort of time to do it, but it is expensive going across on the Spirit of Tasmania. So what do we reckon? What we sort of discussed?
6,
probably
7 weeks.
Yeah, and that would allow you to spend a couple more days in some of the locations you'd really enjoy, which we did, and fit a couple more locations in. We'll go through our top 10 locations, some of the places we've been to before, some of the places on this trip, and there's 1 or 2 that we just didn't get to that everybody raves about.
We're not doing them by order, are we?
No, we're not going to do them by order. So in no set order. So just if you're planning our thoughts, very quickly on each of the locations. First one is probably Hobart.
Yep.
You got to do Hobart. Like if you haven't been there before, you got to do Hobart. It's a historical town.
Yeah, very historical.
Pretty town.
Which is quite interesting.
Yeah, and you can get down to the wharf. You got to do Salamanca markets.
Yep.
Yeah. You've got to sort of do some of the historic areas. Mona. You've got to do Mona. Now, Mona's a polarising museum, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Some people absolutely hate it. Some people absolutely love it.
Yep.
We've got pretty mixed views on it.
It's fine.
But you got to do it.
It's a very good day out.
It is an absolutely fantastic day out. Yeah. So you get on the ferry in Hobart itself. You know, catamaran out to Mona.
Yep.
There's a brewery and there's a winery out there as well. So look.
You can drive.
Yeah.
If you're so inclined. But it's much fun. It was much more fun getting the ferry.
Yeah. So do Mona. Go and make your own decision. But the only caution for mums and dads about Mona?
Some of the exhibits wouldn't be particularly child friendly.
I think some of the exhibits are not child friendly.
No.
Right. And they do actually have signs to say that they're not child friendly, but kids being kids, so mum and dad make sure.
Yeah, they always run in front of you and all that sort of stuff, and maybe a bit late, so you need to be aware.
So particularly for the really little ones, you might be answering some very awkward questions. Where would you stay? We've never been in a caravan park in Hobart. We've been in other accommodation, but one tip from a few other people that we ran into on this trip: go and camp out somewhere near Sorell, and day trip in and out. So next on the list is West Coast.
Yep.
So West Coast, Queenstown, where we went to the West Coast Wilderness Railway, and and that's what look, we'd always wanted to do it, but it's good fun time. Easily half a day trip.
A little bit of history.
Yeah, we learned a little bit of history, and and plenty of good scenery, and it's just good fun. And you can base yourself at Queenstown for that. It's pretty rudimentary if you're vanning at the sports ground.
It was fine.
But it was fine. It was absolutely fine, and everybody's good around there.
Yeah.
And it's a cheap stay over. And to be honest, if you don't mind being in a reasonably rudimentary location, that's not a bad place to base yourself. No. So you could stay down at Strawn or on the coast, or Queenstown, and base yourself there for the West Coast. So go down to Strawn, Macquarie Harbour, go out to Sarah Island, Gordon River cruise.
Yep.
So they're must-dos, and we had done half of that before, so we didn't do Strawn this trip.
You go and do it if you haven't done it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really good.
Yeah. So we're still tossing up. Montezuma Falls might be its own one, or we might be putting it in this one.
Cradle Mountain's next. It's actually quite easy to get to.
Yeah.
You can get on and off the bus as much as you like.
Yeah. There's a mix of walks to do, isn't there? Yeah.
Yeah, depending on what you want to do, how long you want to stay there, how capable you are.
So there's accommodation options at Cradle Mountain.
There is.
But we stayed at, was it Lake Gannerd?
Yes.
Yeah, so we stayed at Lake Gannerd, which is about half an hour up the road, which is a free camp, which is
it's really good.
So Cradle Mountain, it's an icon. You've got to do Cradle Mountain, and you can go and see all sorts of animals, including the wombats.
Yeah.
Okay, so that one. Next on our list, we've got Montezuma Falls.
I was a bit concerned because I'm not really good at walking long distances.
Yeah.
But the walk wasn't that bad.
Yeah, we had Paul
It tested me a little bit.
Yep.
And we did have rain, yeah, we did, but the falls were really pretty. They were really nice.
So we think you've got to go to Montezuma Falls, right? So whether it's its own one or whether it's part of that West Coast one, it doesn't matter. It's a grade 2, 12 kilometres return. We had poor weather. It's not a hard walk, but if you're not used to hiking at all, it can get a little bit tiring, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get the suspension
Yeah,
bridge.
the suspension bridge was okay.
And all those sorts of things. Next on our list is Stanley, the Tarkine region. We didn't get to do this, unfortunately. We'd wanted it. Couldn't get our rig on the ferry across the river at the Tarkine anyway, which meant that we would have to have driven the long way around. People rave about camping up at Stanley and doing that, and the Tarkine and those sorts of things. So again, within the top 10, it probably counts itself in. It's just going to have to be on our to-do list for the future.
Yep, for another time.
Yeah.
Oh, Cockle Creek.
Cockle Creek was great, wasn't it?
That was quite good.
This is one of the ones that we had poor weather when we first got down there.
Yep.
I did the walk out to Southeast Cape. So if you're feeling a bit adventurous, that's depending on where your van is camped. Yeah, that's a 17 to 18 kilometre return walk. I think it's 16 kilometres return from the actual ranger station. And that's a good 4 to 5 hours. And it's grade 3. There are some sort of rocky sort of track areas, a lot of boardwalk and all those sorts of things. But it is a long day, and it is an arduous and tiring day. So provided you've practiced your walking, you wouldn't have too many problems. Make sure you've got plenty of water. But when we left, the sun was coming out.
It's a beautiful
And it was
day.
beautiful. It was absolutely stunning. So Cockle Creek for sure. It's as far south as you can get with your van anywhere in Australia. So add that one in and try to spend a few days and then just work your way through the weather.
And the beaches are quite nice there. We went
very
for
pretty.
a walk on the beach, and it's very pretty.
Yeah, very pretty place. So, and stay at the Cockle Creek campground.
Yep.
The next one, Freycinet Peninsula and Wineglass Bay. Paul said that's just okay.
It was okay.
It's just okay.
I was a bit pooped.
We'd had a long day. We'd packed up at Denali. Google had taken us the wrong way, and all those sort of things. And then we got in there, and it was absolutely beautiful sunshine with poor weather predicted to come in.
Yeah.
So we ended up doing the walk. So Paul was a bit knackered, but absolutely stunning at Wineglass Bay. You can easily spend a week in and around the Freycinet Peninsula.
Oh yeah, there's lots of walks to do and things like that.
You can get oysters.
Although we couldn't.
We couldn't, because the day we turned up to the place that was selling the oysters.
The oysters were spawning apparently.
Yeah.
And they weren't allowed to pick them.
Yeah, so
they didn't have oysters, which
No.
was really disappointing.
yeah, but anyway, so you can do that normally. But stunning location, Wineglass Bay, Freycinet Peninsula. There's a fair bit of history in and around there as well. Tasman Peninsula and Port Arthur is a must-do.
Yep.
Right? So you're definitely going to do Port Arthur. We didn't do Port Arthur this trip, but we'd been there before.
But we went to the peninsula though.
Yes, we did.
And stayed at Denali.
At Denali, yeah. So if you go...
Which you could easily day trip from Denali.
Oh, well, I actually, I think our tip is probably the Denali pub, free camp.
Yep.
Just do the courtesy thing and go in and have a couple of beers at the pub, or maybe even a meal.
Bad. We had a meal there. It wasn't too bad. It's quite nice.
Yeah, and you've got to be self-contained.
Yep.
Right, but a great place at Denali to base yourself, to do the Tasman Peninsula, so you can do the Tasman's Arch, you can do Devil's Kitchen, blowholes, tessellated pavement, and Port Arthur. And you have got to do Port Arthur because it's just such a fascinating part of the convict era history. And it's a bit of an eye-opener if you haven't been there before.
Yeah.
So there, and I can go up to the Bengalow Shed Winery just nearby at Denali as well. Right, I've been there before, but Paula hasn't, which is Launceston. Now, guys, if you're going to go, and I'm going to get in trouble for not saying it right, but if you say Launceston, you'll get corrected down there. Right, it's Launceston. And the nearby Tamar Valley, which is a wine growing area. You can go to Cataract Gorge. So again, if you've got that time, the 6 weeks as we said, well worth stopping in through Lonnie and doing some of the local sites there. All right.
Bay of Fires.
Bay of Fires.
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful.
Absolutely. We could have stayed there longer if we'd had time.
I reckon if you got the
really
weather we got, you'd never leave the place, would you? Yeah.
Do you remember the name of the campsite we were at?
It is, thank you for that.
Sorry.
It is, so Generate Beach Yep.
Yep, that beach was really nice.
Yeah, and a lot of people try to get in at Swim Cart, which is sort of on Wiki Camps is sort of rated best. We tried to get in there, and all the good spots were just taken.
And it was very
early.
cramped.
And it was cramped in. And as it worked out, the weather and the wind probably wasn't that great for Swim Cart.
No.
And we were tucked in a nice little sheltered bay where we could walk to Swim Cart Beach.
Yes.
But we had, anyway, we just can't rave about it enough. And you go into St Helens.
Yep.
Right, good cafes and
Yes.
good services in at St Helens. So Bay of Fires in that region, and look, you can easily plan to spend several days there, or even a week if you've got the time.
Oh yeah.
Talk about taking over the camera now that she's got used to it. Okay. And special mention. Well, we said top 10, but we're going to include an 11th, but it might only be 10 if we've included Montezuma Falls in
And
the
in
West
the
Coast.
count, yeah.
And that is the food, cider and wine regions.
Oh,
right?
the Huon Valley.
Huon Valley.
Yeah.
And so we stopped in at the Huon Valley for poor weather, because we were heading down to Cockle Creek, weren't we?
Yeah, we were, and it was getting windy and nasty.
Yeah, and we stopped in, and I'll put the name of the campground we stopped in, but the more important thing about this section is do take the time to go to some of the food and cider and wine areas, because it's absolutely brilliant down there. So Huon Valley, not that far from Hobart, certainly on your way down to Cockle Creek, so you can plan that. And I've already mentioned the Tamar Valley, but there's a whole range of places.
And of course, don't forget the wood boat shop.
The Wooden Boat Centre?
The Wooden Boat Centre, that's it.
Right, okay.
We spent a really good couple of hours there.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was special mention.
Lots of things.
So our Tassie tips. The first thing is the Spirit of Tasmania is expensive. I think it's about a $2,000, bit more return trip.
But it's easy to get on, and it's easy to get off with your van and everything.
Yeah, but what's the tip?
The tip is, I don't know, get a cabin so you can rest.
Book early.
Yes, book early.
Yeah, so for the Spirit of Tasmania, it is in demand. You've got to book early. Some people book one way and then try to get book their return trip later. You might not get a return trip when you want it.
No, you may be stuck there for quite a few months waiting.
The reason we only had 3 weeks is because even though we booked well in advance, we didn't book far enough in advance. So we got the trip down that we wanted, and fortunately, because we were running late on the lap, that actually worked out, because we really only just made it. But we had a choice of only either 3 weeks down, or in our case, even longer than 6 weeks down. I think it was nearly 2 months down, just with the return trips, just the way the bookings were. And that wouldn't have worked for the rest of our lap.
No.
So, book well in advance. As Paula said, we suggest you get a cabin if you can afford it. If you're day tripping, you could probably rent one of the chairs, and relax. So we did an overnight down, and a day trip back. But we actually had a twin cabin for both, and that was good. A pack for winter, for summer and winter.
Yeah, pack for every weather.
It is Tasmania, so pack for every weather. Now, our tip is don't go down in the winter. It does get cold, and sure, it would be nice at somewhere like Cradle Mountain with a bit of snow on the ground and all those sorts of things. Mind you, you might get that at the shoulder season anyway. So pack for summer and winter.
Do layers.
Do layers. We prefer merino.
Yes.
And so thinner layers of merino and all those sorts of things. We did it on the shoulder season, and we think that's the best. So it's not quite as, still busy. All of Tasmania is busy. But it would just be mad in the high season. I suppose that goes into the next tip. Expect 4 seasons in a day. Yep. And just work through it. The last thing you want to do is be bunkered up. So just have some good wet weather gear, and just do it. Because if you're waiting for the good weather day in one location, you're going to miss out on the good weather day in
another. Not unless
location.
you've got lots of time up your hand.
Yeah. If you've got lots and lots of like 3 months on your hands, but if you're doing, say, the 3 to 6 weeks, or the 6 weeks as we suggested, just push through it, and just get used to it. Look, the scenery's spectacular.
Yep.
but take the time to relax and do the food things and put your feet up and go to some pubs with the fires going and those sorts of things. I mean, it's a great experience. So not just the scenery, and people are very friendly. So there's another one. Now, road conditions. The road conditions can get iffy. So it's generally quite well sealed around the place. But even the sealed roads, say out to the west coast and across to Queenstown, can be windy, steep. They can be hard. We had a couple of people who were saying that their brakes were fading on some of those sections, and icy road signs everywhere. The time of the year we were at wasn't that icy, but take care and get used to it. And even though most of the roads are pretty good, they can be narrow in sections, and with them being so windy, there can be a tendency for people to move to the centre of the road, so just take care.
Yeah, and just try not to drive in twilight time because there are a lot of animals.
Good point. Yeah, really good point. There's a lot of wildlife on the road and adjacent to the roads in Tasmania, particularly all through all those wilderness areas. So again, avoid golden hour if you can, and even keep your eye out.
Yeah, when you're
outside
not.
of that. I suppose the final tip is just be very wary of navigating by Google Maps. Google Maps can take you down some weird roads, can't it? So
It got us to our location.
yeah. So we took the scenic and picturesque route on a couple of occasions, didn't we?
Yep, we did.
Yeah. Look, a lot of the sea roads, particularly in those sort of more regional parts of Tasmania, which is regional anyway, can be gravel road anyway. So quite often Google will take you down a sea road as the shortest route. But with the exception of one or two which are good shortcuts, our suggestion is just check the paper map or your atlas, your road atlas, just to make sure that you're actually happy. We've got a 4x4 and an off-road van.
Yes, so for us it wasn't such a
So for us it wasn't that big a drama, although one or two people with vans like ours did get sent up some roads that they really struggled to turn around in. So our tip is just plan out your route. You're not doing long distances at all in Tasmania, but but just check out the paper map as well. And the final tip is you must go to Tasmania. It's absolutely beautiful. We certainly wanted to do it as part of the lap.
Yep, do yourself a favour and go.
Do yourself a favour and go. All right. There we go. There we go. All this is just for Paula.
This one?
Don't look too excited. Next episode, we head to South Australia. A bit of everything. I hope you're on your thank you for that. Yeah? That's the caravan. Again, thanks for joining us. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and remember, 100% of our YouTube advertising revenue goes to charity.